The Bengals have hope, thoughts on Joe Flacco, and expectations going into Sunday's game against the Packers and what the Bengals need to do to get a win and snap their three-game losing streak. It's time to get into that and much, much more right now on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into CBT. I'm James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com here at Paycor Stadium, where the Bengals just wrapped up their Friday practice and are preparing to start not just Joe Flacco, but start and turn over a new leaf in Green Bay starting on Sunday. The Bengals have been awful over the past 3 weeks. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Outscored 113-37. And so what could expectations be? What should expectations be for a Bengals team that is looking to end a three-game losing streak and have a quarterback that wasn't here 4 days ago? He's going to be 5 days into his Bengals tenure, Joe Flacco is, and starting on Sunday at Lambeau Field. Let's dive into it right now here on CBT. And first things first, my expectations for this offense, I came into the season extremely high. Extremely high on this offense, extremely high on what Joe Burrow was going to do with Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins and Andrei Iosivas and Mike Gesicki and Noah Fant and Chase Brown and all of these guys. And Joe gets hurt, and I still thought the offense would be able to function. And the answer is maybe it should have, but it didn't. And so this change made a ton of sense to me. I explained why Joe Flacco going to get him was the right move. By the way, Joe Flacco was introduced in this seat right here about an hour ago. Make sure you check out that video or that audio wherever you get your podcast or right here on YouTube. But to me, when you go out and you get that guy and you get a guy who can make all of the throws, and I've been told he can still make all of the throws, even though we have limited practice viewing, I expect this offense to be functional. And that might not be fair because they're going on the road and they're dealing with Micah Parsons and they got to deal with Rashawn Gary and a really, really good front. And they're good on the back end with Xavier McKinney as well. Like, this is a really good Packers defense. There's no denying that. But Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, Andrei Iosivas, and I could go on, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, they're really damn good. Okay? They're really damn good. And that's what's been so frustrating for me. Not the fact that they lost the past 3 games, but 37 points, 4 touchdowns, all of them in garbage time over the past 3 games. That should be impossible. No matter who you're playing, it should be impossible for this offense because there's too much talent. And so first things first, I expect this offense to be functional. I expect them to produce some explosive plays. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game. I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a really tough spot. But do I expect this offense to be better than it's been at any point during the past 3 weeks? I do. Outside of maybe garbage time against the Lions when they suddenly decided to move the ball up and down the field, and it was really rare. I think talking to these guys, the juice that they've gotten from Joe Flacco coming into the building is very real. And our members saw my conversation, a one-on-one conversation with T. Higgins. Our members saw my conversation, a one-on-one conversation with Andrei Iosivas. Shout out to our Cincinnati Bengals Talk members on YouTube. And why are those conversations important? Because those 2 guys were poised for huge years, and that hasn't been the case thus far. And I think if the Bengals are going to turn it around, T. Higgins is obviously got to be a huge part of what they do. But Andrei Iosivas is certainly capable. We saw it last week, late in that game against Detroit, of making an impact. And they need all hands on deck. Chase Brown, it's been kind of a bust season for him from a production standpoint. I expect him to get going, whether it's in the passing game or the run game. I expect these tight ends, Mike Gesicki, his numbers down. Andrei Iosivas, his numbers down. T. Higgins is obviously the biggest one. So all these numbers going to go up. The functionality going to go up. The ceiling of this offense certainly much higher because you have a guy that has arm talent, first-round arm talent. Sometimes you just got to say it out loud. And Joe Flacco, yeah, he's 40 years old, but he was the 18th overall pick in 2008. He's got one of the most special arms that we've seen, and I posted this as a short on our channel this week. But here's Joe Burrow ahead of week 1. When asked about Joe Flacco and what comes to mind, Joe Burrow didn't hesitate praising Flacco's arm.
I think he throws it better than, number one, a lot of people give him credit for, and I think he's one of the more natural throwers of the football that I've ever seen. You know, he can spin it with the best of them. He's got one of the strongest arms of all time, so he's going to be able to put the ball when and where he wants to put it.
That arm is special. It is. And that's what the Bengals are banking on, is a pass-first offense where the run game is certainly going to be involved. I think you're going to see some shotgun offense on Sunday, and they are going to try to push that ball to the boundary, downfield, and get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. Get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. If the Bengals are going to make a run, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's on Sunday against Green Bay or Thursday night football, right here at Paycor Stadium in 6 days as we record this, and start to win games, it's going to be because of their playmakers. It is. And why do you trade for Joe Flacco? You trade for him to unlock those playmakers. So what do I expect from Joe Flacco on Sunday at Lambeau? We will be covering the game at Lambeau. See you there. Very simple. I expect him to get the playmakers involved. What about the rest of the team? What about this offensive line? What about this defense? We'll get to that and my prediction for Sunday's game coming up next. This show is brought to you by Sleeper. Right now you can get a free $20, no deposit required, plus first-time users still also receive our 100% deposit match up to $100 with promo code BengalsTalk. You think you know football? Well, turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, where all you do is pick more or less on your favorite players. Maybe you think Jamar Chase is going to go off and have a huge game with Joe Flacco at quarterback, or T. Higgins is going to bust out of his slump when he's on pace for just 44 catches. Look, Sleeper is such a fun app, and right now, like I said, first-time users, you get a free $20 with no deposit required, and you get a 100% deposit match up to $100 with promo code BengalsTalk. Don't delay. Check out Sleeper today. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Again, promo code BengalsTalk. A big topic all week has been, old man behind the offensive line. What's going to happen? Well, a couple of things. One, let's get to the injury portion of this. Offensive line-wise, Dylan Fairchild, I don't expect him to play. I said that on Locked On earlier this week. I'm not sure if I've said it here. We've talked a lot about Joe Flacco. I don't expect Dylan Fairchild to play. Lucas Patrick hasn't been activated yet. I do think he's close. But for me, just looking at it, I would imagine that if it isn't Dylan Fairchild, then you'd see Dalton Reisner. And that's why I was really high on signing Dalton Reisner, is because he's versatile. He can play both guard spots. Would expect to see Dalton Reisner, who, guess what, hasn't been this year, because he came in and started 10 days and all those things. It was a scramble drill, much like it's been with Joe Flacco. But he's a good pass protector. He is. And so if Dalton Reisner starts, you should be okay in pass protection. I know they're encouraged by what Dylan Fairchild has done overall, and they want him to start if he's healthy enough to go. It doesn't feel like that's going to be the case, but we will see for sure. That's just my opinion. We'll see. As far as the rest of the offensive line, Jalen Rivers is going to start at right guard again for a third straight game. They need to hold up. But this idea that Jake Browning's super mobile and that you went from a guy who moved around a ton to a guy that was a statue. Well, no. What they need is a guy that can throw it to their playmakers, and if it's not there and the pressure's there, well, then get rid of it. And, take the sack. Sacks aren't the worst thing. The worst thing is pick sixes. The worst thing is fumbles for touchdown. The worst thing is looking up and it's 17-3 in the second quarter, 14-3 in the second quarter, and you're trying to dig yourself out of a hole. That's what these past 3 weeks have been. And so I'm not really worried about the mobility part of it, because Jake Browning wasn't super athletic anyway, and I think that's been an overrated storyline. Of course it's a factor, but you bring Joe Flacco in to get the ball to Jamar Chase so he can run, so Chase Brown can run, so Noah Fant can run, so all of these weapons can run. And so the offensive line, they're going to be tested, because that front for the Packers is really, really good. And so quick game is going to be a big part of it. It would be, whether it was Joe Burrow, whether it was Jake Browning, Joe Flacco, it would be regardless of who the offensive line was, because this Packers team should be able to get pressure. So these Bengals playmakers, they need to win. They need to have big days. That's certainly a big part of it. And then defensively, it stinks, because you're not going to have Shamar Stewart. He's listed as doubtful, so he's probably not going to play. I do think he's got a really good shot to play against the Steelers 4 days from Sunday on Thursday Night Football, which is good, because that's certainly the more meaningful and important game when it comes to the standings. Every game matters, of course. But no Shamar, you're going to have to find a way to get pressure on Jordan Love, and that starts with stopping the run. Can't let Josh Jacobs get going. They're averaging less than 4 yards a carry so far this season. If you do that, you stop the run, and you put them 3rd and 7 or worse, 3rd and 8 or worse, and then you're making Jordan Love read the field, scan the field, and make a play, well, then that gives Trey Hendricks an opportunity. It gives Miles Murphy, who had a sack last week, Joseph Osai, who had a sack last week, Chris Jenkins, who had some nice plays last week, gives this defensive front a chance to make some impact plays. And that's what they're going to need. They're going to need splash plays on defense. Turnovers, of course. Obviously, sacks are huge. Tackles for loss. Anything like that is going to go a long way. And I'm excited to see how that pans out, because I think this is a good Packers offense. I think Jordan Love is a good quarterback. He's got nice weapons around him. And so we'll see how that element plays out. And then the other thing here, the Packers have stunk on special teams. They've had field goal blocked, extra point blocked. They've given up plays. That special teams factor, the Bengals need to win that. Evan McPherson, perfect so far. Money Mac needs to continue to be that. Ryan Rico needs to have a big game if he's out there. You hope he's not out there, of course. And this is a tough game. It's a tough game. It's a tough matchup on a short week for your new starting quarterback. But if you can go out there and be competitive, that could go a long way, especially with that Pittsburgh game looming that I'm already looking at. Like I've told people in the building today, just to give you an idea of my mindset. If you go and you're competitive against Green Bay and it feels like you're moving in the right direction, and then you come back home, even if you lose to the Packers, and then you come back home and you beat the Steelers, you're all right. Because then you'd be 3-4. You'd have a tiebreaker over the Steelers, who are first in the division, and you'd be in the mix. If that doesn't happen and you drop these next two, well, then you're in trouble. And that's why you make the Joe Flacco trade when you did. You get a guy who should be able to get it to their playmakers, and we will see if that happens. Of course, it's prediction time here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. This prediction is brought to you by Rivertown Inquiry and rivertowninquiry.com. They have 2 locations, one in Findlay Market, one in Oakley, and also, like I said, check them out online, rivertowninquiry.com. The best apparel in Cincinnati. It lasts super long. I have Rivertown Inquiry shirts that I got when Joe Burrow was a rookie or a second-year player, something like that. It's been years now. They hold up. They feel great, and I wear them all the time. You see them. I don't have one on right now, but you see them plenty. So this prediction brought to you by rivertowninquiry.com. Look, I think the Bengals are going to be competitive. I think Joe Flacco is going to do a lot of good things. I also think there are going to be some mistakes because it's a really tough position and it's a really good defense and it's on the road. So the silent cadence, all of those things, I think it's just there's a lot of factors, but I think this Bengals offense looks the part a bit more and is a bit more consistent, is a bit more explosive, but it's just not going to be enough. It's just a lot. It's a tough situation. I do think, because I saw the spreads like 14.5, I actually think the Bengals, I will take those points. I think the Bengals hang in there. They lose 31-24. They hang in the game. They're competitive. It's just not enough. And, man, if they did get the win, well, it would go a long way toward not just resurrecting their season, but giving everyone hope that this season is certainly not lost. Make sure you check out what Joe Flacco had to say on Friday, including some thoughts on Joe Burrow and what Joe Burrow said to him, Jake Browning and his relationship with Jake, Zach Taylor, and so much more. Really, really good stuff from Joe Flacco. He talked for nearly 19 minutes. You can catch it all right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. For Andrew Fox Miller, who's coming to Green Bay with me, we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you on game day for sure right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk.